Have you ever stopped to think about how much time, money, and sanity you lose by getting into a relationship at the wrong time? I used to believe that being with someone was one of the most important things, until I realized that maybe what was holding me back wasn't love, but the fear of being alone. And what if I told you that avoiding a commitment right now might be the key to a much more stable and possibly even happier future? Let's talk about what really happens when you dive into a relationship unprepared, and why waiting might be your best decision. Current context and reasons to avoid relationships. If you're not at peace with yourself, how can you expect someone else to be? Before considering sharing your life with someone, it's essential to look inward and recognize what's still broken. Sometimes, we believe a relationship will heal these wounds, but that's a trap. It's like trying to build a house on unstable ground. The structure may hold up for a while, but eventually, it will collapse. For example, I was in a relationship with a girl for 5 years. At first, love is blind, and we think we've found our other half. But over time, I realized that our ideologies were different, and it just wasn't working. Arguments, disagreements, and endless discussions ensued. In truth, we were both just trying to fill an emptiness. Maybe you've experienced this, or you've seen it happen to others. The reality is that seeking someone to fill our voids doesn't solve the problem. It merely hides it. And, ultimately, the person who should be by your side ends up carrying a weight that isn't theirs. Lack of personal emotional stability. You know that feeling of needing someone to be happy, to feel complete? The truth is, that idea can be a major trap. Being emotionally unstable and yet trying to lean on a relationship is like adding extra weight to a structure that's already cracked. You feel the need for someone to fill those voids, but is it fair? Fair to you and to the other person? I know it's tempting to believe that someone will come along and magically solve these problems. We're taught by movies and series to find the perfect person, but that rarely happens. Often, you end up projecting insecurities, seeking support where there should be partnership, and placing too much weight on the other person's shoulders. Economic impacts of relationships. Relationships are investments, and like any investment, they come with risks. The difference here is that you're not just putting money on the line, but also your time and energy. Think about every time you go out with someone. It's not just the cost of dinner or the movie. It's the fuel you spend, the time you could have used to learn something new, the sleep you miss getting home late, and even the extra expenses for that special celebration that, in the end, may not give you the return you expected. Have you ever caught yourself thinking about everything you're giving up to sustain a relationship? Hours that could be dedicated to your personal growth, to your work, to your physical and mental well-being. But instead, you're spending it all on outings that are often more about keeping the relationship going than truly connecting. It's a hard reality to face, but it's worth questioning. Is it fair to yourself? Detailed example. Imagine a typical week. You work all day, you're exhausted, but you have that commitment with your partner. There goes a decent amount on transport or fuel, a dinner that, even if simple, still costs, and the energy needed to stay engaged in conversation. Multiply that by 4 or 5 times a month, and you start to see how the emotional and financial costs quickly add up. Imagine if you stay with that person anyway and have children. Let's envision a scenario where you choose to move forward, even knowing the challenges, and end up starting a family. It might seem like with the arrival of a child, things will settle down, love will grow, and the problems will fade. But in reality, children don't fix what's already broken. They intensify it. The lack of understanding, financial strain, emotional instability, all of it gains a new layer of complexity. I'm sure you've seen families where children end up being the breaking point, where increased responsibilities and expectations only add to the arguments and frustration. The children, who should be a source of joy, end up at the center of conflicts, absorbing all the emotional burden of their parents. And the weight of this is immense, both for those living in the chaos and for those observing. The worst part is that the child will absorb every word, every gesture, every sign of discord. This unstable environment becomes their world, shaping their understanding of what a family is. And you realize that the cycle of dissatisfaction and misunderstanding is being passed down to the next generation. Avoiding relationships due to loneliness. How many times do we start a relationship just because we feel lonely? Deep down, many people enter relationships to escape their own company, filling a void that, in truth, only they themselves can truly fill. The problem is when loneliness is the sole reason for being with someone, the relationship is fragile from the start, built not on love, but on need. Maybe you've experienced this, or seen someone force themselves to be with another person just to avoid the weight of loneliness. It's more common than it seems, but also one of the most dangerous situations. By using someone else as a band-aid for your own fears, you end up in a relationship that doesn't have a real foundation. And deep down, the loneliness remains. It doesn't disappear, it's just masked. Final thoughts. Relationships are serious business. They're nothing like Hollywood movies. Forcing yourself to be with someone out of loneliness, seeking in another person a solution for emotional issues, or committing without stability will only create more challenges. Every decision you make today directly shapes your future, and being at peace with yourself is the first step toward building something genuine with someone else.